This dwarf is openly weeping, anguish etched on his face. He's surrounded by drained wine bottles, each a testament of his despair. As you draw closer, a noxious but familiar odor wafts over you, the acrid tang of rot gut, the cheapest of spirits. Totally plastered, the dwarf is wallowing in his misery.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at New Arcline, a new early access title that's just come out on Steam, and I wanted to cover it because it looked kind of cool. It's magic and steampunk. It's like magic versus steampunk in the world, and I was like, it's pretty cool, but I didn't know what I was getting myself into, so this is just the first impressions of the first like 3 or so hours, along with letting you know how performance is on Steam Deck, as this is all Steam Deck footage. So we'll do performance first, and then I will talk about gameplay afterwards. That would make the most sense, because there's no point me talking about it and then I tell you that performance is rubbish and not to play it. So we'll start there and then we'll move forward. As you can see here, I'm making my character, so I'll show you my character while I talk about performance for a split second. So, and controls. So I'm going to have a controller template put up. So if you search King Salami in the community controllers, you should find one called King Salami New Arcline, and you'll be able to use that. And I will go over my controls later in the video. I'll probably do it after I do performance, and then I'll do like talking about the game in general. So there is no controller support out the gate for this game, which is kind of bizarre, but it is a PC only title at the moment, so it makes sense. But it's totally playable. Like I said, I've put 3 hours in on Steam Deck, and I've been able to play with just using the trackpads and face and triggers as my clicks and all that good stuff. So it's definitely playable as a PC only title on Steam Deck. But jumping over to performance, this is a UE5 game, so it's a little bit heavy. I will put up on screen now my recommended settings. So here's my recommended settings here. Of course, you can lock it to 30 FPS. I hadn't done it here because I was doing my testing. TSR along with resolution scale 100. You may want to drop that down to 75 and give you a little bit more performance. But the clarity does degrade quite heavily, unfortunately. And then we've got a mixture of mediums, highs, and lows. I'll let you know now that when you reach the new world, or the first major city, your frame rate's going to be going between 20 and 30. It's just, unfortunately, that's the way it is. For a game like this, which is turn-based, D100-based combat and gameplay, it's not going to matter too much. But think of it as like the third act of Baldur's Gate 3 at the very start of this game. So but you do have to realize this is early access, and there's going to be plenty of time for them to do, updates that increase performance. So that's hopefully the outcome. So if you're going in blind, at least you know now that performance, it's playable, but you are going to have pretty average to bad frames to start off with, but playable because it's turn-based combat, so it doesn't really matter. And I think that's really it. Performance, you're going to see it in game momentarily here, so don't worry too much about it. So I was going to do controls next, but we'll just do some gameplay and I'll mix in controls as I go. So let's jump forward a wee bit and I'll show you some actual gameplay.
The interminable voyage from the old world is finally over, and the relentless seasickness has at last slackened its grip. You inhale deeply and let the warm sea breeze fill your senses. The cries of gulls fill the air, alongside the chatter of folk on the bustling docks. Your heart quickens with anticipation as you take that first decisive step off the gangway. The new world awaits.
If you're getting Baldur's Gate vibes, I am too, and I'm actually loving it. You've got the narrator going over the top of the story, and you've got your decisions, of course, down below here. As you can see, there's lots of quest decisions you can make on how you want to act, and depending on your character creation, on points where you've put into cunning or persuasion or intimidation and all that kind of thing. And also your backstory. I've gone for you can pick if you want to be a magic inclined person or a steampunk inclined person, one versus the other. I'm going for the diesel guy because because why not? So yeah, and it's unlike D&D or Baldur's Gate 3, which is a D20 system. This game's using a D100 system where you roll under what you need. So you might have like a persuasion check or an intimidation check that might be something like you need to roll under an 80. So you'd roll a D100, so ones and hundreds, and then you'd roll, say, a 99 or a 27 or a 2 and a 7 on your dice on your D100s. And so that's how I actually quite like this system. It's very clear to me, and it works pretty well. And you have this little icon up the top which will spin depending on if you pass. It'll throw the dice and then it will do this little spinner thing and tell you what your result is. So yeah, I quite like that. You've got the open world here where you walk around using your track. It's a mouse click movement. There is no WSAD for movement, unfortunately. I'm hoping at some point they may consider adding that in as an option, but I don't know. One thing I want to show you here is whenever you go to play the game, it will ask you to do this prerequisite thing for installing UE5 thingamabobbers. So I don't know why it does this, but basically you just say yes every time. It will uninstall it and install it each time you load the game, and eventually, but it always works after you do it, and it takes maybe 1 to 2 seconds. So my recommendation is if you want to play this will pop up every time. I'm not sure why, but if you just say yes and push next, it'll do its quick install like that, and then you can close it, and you'll see here that the game loads up no problem. So I just want to throw that in there because it's worth letting you guys know, as this is early access and you don't want to see that. You might be real confused when you see that pop up for the first time. So we'll jump back to the gameplay. As you can see here, we've got all our kind of usual things like our journals and quest logs, where, as you can see, we've got a full-on inventory screen here where you have your main armor piece, you have your legs, you have like a chest piece, rings, quick items. You have basically pretty, full-on inventory, along with things like your perks and traits, which you unlock when you level up. I'm going to say I've been playing for 3 hours and I haven't leveled up, so I'm not sure whether that's story progression blocked at the first area of the game or if I've done something wrong, but I haven't leveled up. You have a map, of course, and I'll show some combat soon. There's not a lot of combat in this opening area. It does take its time. It does, go slow. So here I just want to show off how you use your abilities and skills in conversations. As you can see here, we're having a chat, and then I've rolled observation tech here, which succeeded. And then, as you can see, I can do a sleight of hand, which is one of my mechanic abilities. There's also a tech knowledge one as well. So it's very cool. You can examine, which is, I think this is quite well done. See, I did a sleight of hand check and then it passed because I rolled a 40. So that's how skill checks and all that are made in this game. It's a little bit, I like how it gives you the options to use your different types of abilities here. I think it works really well. As you can see here, the game is a bit framey, unfortunately. But like I say, it's definitely playable, but just a little bit frustrating that we have these kind of issues. But we'll make the most of it.
Damn. That brawl was a real cracker. Up until your grand entrance, that is. My sniffer feels like a plate of mashed taters now. And I'm not loving it. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad you're here. But you could have chosen a less no-stumping moment, huh? Oh, I've spent so many hours staring at that photo of your charming mug. I could pick you out, even if you were wearing a mask.
This is one of the first combat encounters, so I wanted to show this. So it's very, very low level, so don't expect too much from like level 1 combat. As you can see here, it starts a fight. We have up the top our initiative order, so it's one of the rats, and then my 2 characters, Mick and myself, and then the other rat. So you have action points, or whatever they're called. You have your primary action points, your secondary action points, I think, are for like reactions and things like that. And then you also have your movement points. So, and then you have your abilities, but they take multiple turns to refresh. Like his stun there that I've just done will take like 4 turns before it's back. But because at level 1, we've only got 1 skill, where at higher levels, I'm assuming you'd have multiple. And when you're in combat, you can move the camera around a little bit more normally, but yeah, you can just look through your skills here. I've got my rifle out here, and I'm thinking depending on range also depends on how easy it is or hard it is for you to hit, because I do move further away here, and that means that I think my hit rate goes down from what I can gather. And I've got 2 actions in my action phase, and I have to use one to shoot and one to reload this rifle. And I'm assuming different weapons will have different amount of reload times, or you might get multiple rounds of shots before having to reload. Where with the Mick over here, he can punch twice before he runs out of action points. So you have armor on top of your health, as you can see, and your armor resets after each combat. So armor is really useful in this game from what I can gather, because it's like a shield almost that resets after every turn. You don't really want it to, if you have enough armor to stop your hit points being touched, you're basically invincible. I almost die here. See, I got 82% to hit and I miss, unfortunately. But as you can tell here, combat's pretty easy, not easy, but it's safe to play on Steam Deck even with low frame rates, due to the fact it's all turn-based and you're just checking skills and abilities as you go. I'm not sure how this is going to look when you start filling up your like how hard that is going to be to see when you start filling up your ability bar with the screen size of the OLED, but I'm going to play some more for sure. This is just my first impressions, and I wanted to get it out there to show that it does work and it is playable. So what we'll do now is I'll go over controls and then my final first initial thoughts.
Hey, Jimmy, my man.
The cop startles at Mick's exclamation, his countenance darkening as he looks up at the imposing giant. It's abundantly clear that he's less than thrilled by Mick's appearance.
What do you want, Mortensen?
Jimmy, you owe me a little something. And since I'm in the neighborhood, I thought I'd cash in.
So going over controls real quick, you're using the right trackpad as your way to maneuver the world by either clicking it in or pulling the right trigger to click move around. You can also, if you slowly pull in the right trigger and keep your finger down on the trackpad, as like drag move. So basically, instead of clicking, you'll just, if you hold the trigger down and move your finger around, you're kind of like pulling yourself, as you can see here, as a single action. You don't have to click so much, and that's how I move around a lot of the time. And then you can just highlight objects to see what you can click on by holding the X button, and it will pop up with words above. You know, like as you can see, like those things here you can click on. So that's your basics, and so yeah, left, and then your left and right clicker on both of the triggers, which you'll use semi-regularly. B and Y bring up your inventory and your journal and things like that. When you're in, to rotate the camera, you use the left stick to turn left and right, and up and down to pull in and pull out. You'll notice this game pulls out quite a lot by itself without any real control over it. So you're going to end up, as you can see, I'm pulling it back in because it's pulled out. If you're looking at the game wondering why it looks so bad, I turned everything to low to try and increase that frame rate, but it's not great, so I wouldn't recommend it. I'd rather take a bit of a stringy frame rate just so the game doesn't look too bad. The lows on this it's just a bit too much for me to handle, but that is what it is. You get yourself into some strange missions here, like this one here. You're trying to get into the city, and so you're helping this director out of this play, and you have to go find the 3 actors and actresses and bring them back by any means necessary. So they do have you doing some very odd quests at the start here. I'm assuming the story starts to pick up because the prologue is set in the future, and then it goes to 3 months earlier. So yeah, I didn't want to show the prologue because the prologue's kind of cool. It's very confusing, but I think that was the point of the prologue, is they start throwing things at you and you have no idea what they're talking about. But back to controls, and then when you're in combat, you can use the D-pad to move around the combat, so that always helps. But yeah, you use the left analog stick to rotate the camera around basically and zoom it in and out. The left trackpad has 1 to 7 on it because you in the dialogue you only really can see the first 3, but if you want, you can pick other options. And if you scroll over the dialogue menu here and push down on the D-pad, it should scroll through the things without having to click the little arrow to scroll through the chat dialogues. Yeah, and then on the back buttons on L4 and R4, I've got quick load and quick save, just so you can save whenever you want, really. Map is on the left button, so like the little squares up the top, and the 3 barred one is just your menu button. Pretty straightforward. So yeah, that's new Ark. It's pretty. I do enjoy it. It is very much a slow burn in the opening city here, with only like a handful of fights and a lot of dialogue. I guess they're building the world up, which makes sense. But 3 hours in, I am pretty happy with this early access title. It is very early access. It's definitely not finished. I think the voice acting is pretty high quality though, for what they're going for here. And I'm definitely going to come back with a, I wouldn't say a review, but I'm going to play through the early access and I don't know whether, and then come back with a second opinion on it. So you may see another video coming up soon with me giving my impressions a little bit more as I put more time in. But the game works on Steam Deck. The frame rate's not very good. It's playable, and my controller scheme is available for you guys. Just keep in mind, it's early access and it costs about 25 New Zealand dollars on special. So I'm guessing it's about $30 normally. I don't know how much that would be in US. So just keep that in mind. But without further ado, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.
Wayne Zindo! Take the microphone, Director Zindo, please.
Welcome, newcomers, to our land. A land that lives and breathes freedom. At this point, I would normally be handing you a glass of wine while we all relax and have a nice chat, but today's circumstances call for a little improvisation. As you may have guessed, we've had a small problem with transportation. The train to New Ark has been delayed, but don't worry, Letta Jean and her team are already addressing this unpleasant issue. And when our system-wide automation is complete, such inconveniences will be nothing but a memory. You'll reach Newark eventually, and I guarantee it will be all the more thrilling for the wait. In the interim, the Syndicate has prepared a special gift for you. A drama arranged by Newark's acclaimed stage director, Richard Maxwell Gracefield Parisi III. Mr. Gracefield Parisi and his troupe will put on a performance of The Broken Heart of the Enchanted Beast. I hope you enjoy it as much as I know I will.